And my name is Greg Nojeim. I'm with the Center for Democracy and Technology. We're a nonprofit and we're dedicated to keeping the internet open, innovative, and free. We're here today to discuss a really difficult issue. We're applying old law to new technology. And it's always risky. It's usually unclear, the answers, when you do that. And reasonable people can disagree. And I consider Paul, my friend and opponent, a reasonable guy, but in this case, I'm afraid we just disagree. I'm going to explain to you today why cell phone and internet blackouts are unconstitutional and illegal, and explain why they are unconstitutional and illegal for very good reasons. I'm going to ask Lance to give me a 1-minute warning. He's not being impolite. He's doing exactly what I would want. First, on whether a cell phone or internet blackout is unconstitutional, you'll hear a lot of discussion about whether the act of blocking the cell phone or the internet access is occurring in a public or a non-public forum. And really this happened for the first time, I think, in this country in the BART system on August 11th of this year, where BART shut down cell phone and internet service at 4 of its stations on August 11th. And the constitutional analysis goes like this. If the government sets up a public forum, think of a public park or a sidewalk, it has to meet a very, very high burden to restrict speech there. In a non-public forum, something like an airport, the test is more limited. The restraint on speech must only be reasonable and content neutral. So whether the blackout happens in something that's determined to be a public forum or a non-public forum matters to the constitutional analysis. In the BART situation, BART argued that its trains and its train platforms are not a public forum. And of course it took that position, because there's a case, Lehman v. City of Shaker Heights, a Supreme Court case from 1974, where the Supreme said that a public transit system can't be compelled to take political ads because it was a non-public forum. The court said, here we have no open spaces, no meeting hall, no park, no street corner, or no other public thoroughfare. But BART got the analysis wrong. It really isn't whether the protesters were going to the platform to protest, whether the platform itself was a public forum. It was whether the airwaves over the platform, leading to the platform, whether they were the public forum. We're looking at a virtual public forum, not a physical public forum. And that's why I say we need to think differently about how the law about public forum versus non-public forum should be applying. Cell phone and internet shutdowns occur not in a physical forum like a park or a train station. They occur in a virtual forum. And the governments create a virtual forum when they offer internet service to the public. And when they do that, they can't just turn it on and off at a whim, just like they can't open and close the park on a whim. In the virtual public forum, this guy, this cell phone, it's your soapbox, and the government's trying to kick it out from under you. Even when the purpose of the government is to stop crime instead of stopping a protest, the bar on barring speech is very high. In Brandenburg versus Ohio, the Supreme Court in 1969 said the government couldn't bar advocacy or use of force couldn't bar advocacy of use of force unless that advocacy is directed to inciting or producing lawless activity that is imminent and is likely to occur. 4 conditions have to be met. Cell phone and internet blackouts fail the Brandenburg test miserably. They suppress speech that doesn't incite lawless activity. They suppress speech of people who aren't even inciters. And depending on the facts, they could also fail the other prongs of this test. Say you don't buy my virtual public forum argument. Think about the context in which internet and cell phone blackouts could occur. And certainly some of them would fail the constitutional test. Say the DC government maintains Farragut Square as a public park. It offers free Wi-Fi along with tree cutting and trimming and picking up trash. Wi-Fi is on all the time, except one day when the government determines that protesters are coming and it wants to inhibit their ability to bring in other protesters through text messaging and for other activities. So it turns off Wi-Fi in the park. Surely in that scenario, it's clear that the government is inhibiting speech with which it disagrees. And in that scenario, such a cutoff would violate the Constitution. Not only is cutting off cell phone and internet service illegal, at least in some contexts, unconstitutional, at least in some contexts, it's also illegal. And it's important to think about the blackout as affecting not just internet access, but also cell phone service. Because the cell phone the cell phone service, the calls that you're making are under a different analysis in the legal context. They are a commercial mobile radio service. They're regulated like your landline telephone. And when you think about the government cutting off landline service, you start thinking, hey, wait a minute, that never happens. That never happens, and it doesn't happen because the Communications Act prohibits carriers, receivers, and operating trustees and agents from interrupting service absent an order from the Federal Communications Commission or from a state public utility commission or from a court. If the government operates the network, it violates its common carrier duties under the Communications Act, Section 214A3, which provides, no carrier shall discontinue, reduce, or impair service to a community or part of a community unless and until there shall first have been obtained from the Commission a certificate that neither the present nor future public convenience or necessity will be adversely affected thereby. In the absence of that certificate, internet or cell phone shutdown violates the Communications Act. Even if the government doesn't operate the network but merely acts as an agent for those who do, same obligations apply. It is settled law that governmental agencies can't order the discontinuation of phone service merely on suspicion of legal activities, and they've tried. In People v. Brophy, Earl Warren, later the Supreme Court Chief Justice, then the Attorney General of California, tried to order a phone company to disconnect service from a man on suspicion that he was illegally supplying racing information to bookmakers. The California District Court of Appeal held that only the state PUC could issue such an order. Public utilities and common carriers aren't the censors of public or private morals, the court said. The telephone company has no more right to refuse its facilities to persons because of a belief that such persons will use the service to transmit information that may enable the recipients thereof to violate the law than a railroad company would have to refuse to carry people on its trains because of its belief that its transportation would facilitate a crime. In another case in Alabama, Pike v. Southern Bell, the court ruled that the Commissioner of Public Safety in Birmingham, Eugene Bull Connor, couldn't order the telephone company to disconnect users of a phone based on suspicion that the user was using it to facilitate crime. In that case, the customer was alleged to have operated a lottery, which was illegal, and a, quote, Negro beer joint, which was perfectly legal. One federal district court even ruled that interruption of phone service without due process is a taking under the Fifth Amendment. These actions are unconstitutional and illegal for very good reasons. 450,000 emergency calls a day are made to mobile 911, and many of them involve real emergencies, giving every local law enforcement agency free rein to cut off this vital source of communication risks disrupting emergency services. Even more broadly, we live our lives online. We make purchases, we catch up with friends, we call home to say we're safe, we call home to say we're in trouble. We conduct our business and we seek out entertainment, all online. Do we really want to live in a world where a government agency has the power to interrupt the service that we count on for these everyday activities? Cell phone shutoffs are, by their nature, overbroad, interrupting service to the innocent and to the suspect alike. Doesn't matter the purpose of the communication, its urgency, or the relationship between the prospective communicants. When the stated goal of a shutdown is to prevent demonstrations and protests, these cutoffs are even more objectionable because they undermine free speech rights. And they assume that illegal conduct will occur even though it hasn't yet, just because it may have occurred in the past. And these shutdowns send a very bad message to an anxious world, already troubled by the internet shutdown in Egypt. The rest of the world is wondering whether the country with possibly the strongest free speech protections on the planet will live up to its ideals. And there are alternatives to these shutdowns to further the government purposes that are cited to justify them. Society isn't defenseless against people who use the internet and cell phone calls to further criminal activity. Hey, here's a thought. Instead of punishing the innocent by cutting off everyone's cell phone service, let's put some police on the scene, and if somebody does something illegal, arrest them. That's the way it's supposed to work. Here's another thought. When the police figure out who the bad guys are from the first demo at which violent or illegal activity occurred, if there's probable cause that they'll do it again, the same illegal activity, wiretap them. Don't punish the rest of us. Thank you.